All right, thanks very much. Welcome back to the show. Time to talk a little Auburn football with Brian Brinsfield, former Auburn Tiger, always an Auburn Tiger, the national champion from 1993. Brian, great to have you with us this morning. I know you're getting ready for a big weekend on the Plains, a little celebration of national champions, and it's been a busy week in college football. Not a lot of great games going on this weekend, but a lot of coaching talk involving that guy over there at Ole Miss who's doing a lot of yoga, it seems like.
Yeah, I'm on my way right now to do some yoga with him, and I think the AD.
Yeah.
We're gonna stretch it out. Yeah, it's kind of the calm before the storm. The week before the last game, usually is usually get a kind of an easy game. And listen, Mercer is, what are they, 8-2, something like 9-2,
9-1, I think.
9-1.
Yeah.
So
Is that right?
it may not be an easy game. And
They're pretty good.
yeah. And we get to talk about some stuff a little bit later on, and the quarterback issue with Ashton sitting out, and whether we play Deuce or whether we play Jackson or whether we play both, that's going to be interesting to watch unfold, I think.
Yeah.
And see how that goes, especially watching Deuce, and just, hopefully they'll tell him, go out and play some football, and we'll get to see his natural raw talent, and then kind of see where the program is going in the future.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be fun to watch him play if he does start, and see how much better he's gotten since Ball State, because at the Ball State game, I didn't think he was ready to play.
No.
So,
but that's early in the season. And there's so much. I'm sure Coach Freeze didn't. Well, I'm not sure. I can't say that, but I don't know how much he pared down the offense for Deuce.
Right.
He probably had the whole thing running through his brain. Your rear end's tight. You're in front of 89,000, 90,000 people, and so hopefully. I've said this a couple times. Hopefully they sit down in front of them and say, I don't, just tune out everything else. Just go play football.
Right. Kind of like they did with
like
Ashton last week.
Yeah. Yeah. And it worked. Whoever talked to Ashton, go talk to, hopefully they have the sports psychologist on the staff, and go talk to Deuce, and go say, listen, pretend like there's a chain link fence around Jordan here, and this is a backyard.
Yeah.
And just go play.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. The thing about quarterbacks is the fans always love the backups, and it's going to go crazy if Deuce does really well. It's going to go really crazy.
Yeah.
If he
hits that deep ball, it's going to be nuts.
If he hits a deep ball, or if he hits a run. I mean, he's a good runner, I think. And if he hits a 60-yard run or something like that, it's going to go nuts. And then there's going to be fuel for the fire for next year. Whether it is, should Ashton have taken his red shirt, and should Deuce be the quarterback?
Yeah. Or even next week.
Even next week.
People will be talking about, should it be Deuce or should it be Ashton against Alabama, right?
Yeah. When I was there, Stan was our quarterback, and the stud on campus, the most famous person on campus, or the favorite person on campus, was Patrick Nix. When Patrick was a quarterback in 93, 94, the most famous person on campus was Damian Craig. And it's just always like that.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say Frank Sanders.
Well, Frank was obviously the greatest, and he was just the greatest. Yeah. But he played. They did not want Frank to play.
He wasn't the quarterback.
They always want the backup quarterback to play.
Yeah. But we'll get to Frank in just a second. I know you talked to him this week, but that quarterback, the coaching situation, we were in that deal with Lane Kiffin not too long ago. So I'm interested to know your thoughts on what you're thinking he's going to do, as if anybody knows, or as if he knows. And then the Auburn situation, any further progression there as far as you're concerned as to who the best fit is, or who's the front runner?
No, it's kind of not cooled off, but it's kind of cooled off a little bit, I think. And, there's so much, we saw that we saw flirting with Florida, and then Florida saying, no, that's not going to happen. We see Kiffin's family is house shopping and Cajun eating in Baton Rouge, and then they go gator shopping and gator eating
Yeah.
in Gainesville.
And Lane knows nothing about that.
Lane has no clue where his family is,
Yeah.
because he's doing hot yoga. Um, so with Kiffin, again, this is my take. He be but Kiffin, we know this. Kiffin is always looking for something else. He'd be dumb to go to anywhere else than where he is. I mean, they're going to name the stadium after him. They're going to name the field after him. They're going to put a statue of him outside the stadium that's named after him, that's named after the field that's named after the stadium.
May build a new stadium named after him,
right,
which they need, I think.
right, they do need a new stadium.
But apparently LSU has offered him $15 million a year, is what the rumor was going around yesterday.
Yeah.
I know it at the beginning of the process. I said, I threw out a crazy figure for Florida of, I think, $20 million a year. So we're getting closer.
Yeah, you did, but you need to read that contract really well, because you need to make sure the governor has signed off on it. You need to make sure the Congress has signed off on it.
Yeah.
You need to make sure Mike the Tiger signed off on it. That when you get fired, because it's inevitable, if you don't win a national championship in the first 5 years, you're not going to be there. And
that may be the best thing ever, right? For Lane Kiffin, he may coach 2 years and then get his buyout.
Hey, and then go to Florida.
Yeah,
where you really want to be.
$180 million buyout, and then go to Florida
and get $20 million a year.
Yeah,
and then get fired from Florida and have $500 million and go to USC.
Wow, or the NFL,
or the NFL, right? The Raiders, right?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Right, so,
It's crazy. But as far as Auburn's concerned, it's still the usual suspects, and I don't think one has. We can cross one off the list, and that's James Franklin.
Yeah,
because he's at Virginia Tech.
Going to Virginia Tech, which is probably a great move for them.
Probably.
But yeah, and you talked about the smoke a little bit, and what keeps coming in my mind is this deal already done with Sumrall? And they're throwing these other names out there for smoke.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It very well could be. And now Florida said, "Hey, we're not interviewing them." Well, are they not interviewing them because Auburn's tied them down? I don't know.
Yeah, and a lot of people talking about Sumrall for Ole Miss, but anyway, still much speculation there. But we talked about the celebration of national champions this weekend, and you're going to be there, Brian. A lot of your teammates, and we'll hear from them in a minute, but. One of the guys you talked to this week, a very special player at Auburn, Frank Sanders, sent us a little bit of a message that we're going to play, and just reminisce and talk about him a little bit. I know you guys are pretty close and in the same class, I think, but those memories that he gave us at Auburn they're still there. They're still fresh.
Yeah, Frank doesn't get to come back much, and he's got a busy schedule out in Arizona, and so I haven't seen Frank in a long time. But Frank did send me a text a couple of years ago. He saw a photo on Facebook of me and my father, and he sent me it was me and my dad in Gulf Shores when I was probably 3 years old, and he sent me a text and said that's one of the most beautiful pictures I've ever seen. And I'll send the text when we can put it on X. It really is a good text. I mean, a really good photo, and it's a good tribute to my father. But Frank's just a special guy. He's one of those guys that'll send you a text out of the blue. So I reached out to Frank, but my memories of Frank were just from the get-go. He was in our class, in our recruiting class. He was one of the 4 guys from Dillard High School out of Fort Lauderdale. Calvin Jackson, Brian Robinson, James Bostic, and Frank Sanders. I mean, that's a team right there.
Yeah,
just those 4, and they followed Otis Mounds out of the stands to Auburn. So I mean, those 5 guys. Just those 5 guys are a recruiting class, but then you add everybody else on there, Shannon Robeek and Jason Taylor and Patrick Nix. And I mean, all the guys that came in that class, it's a special class. I remember we were in Sewell Hall one day. We were getting our food, and I was talking to Patrick, and I said, how did the offense look today? And he looked at me and he said, Frank Sanders runs the best routes of any receiver I've ever known in my life, or any receiver I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And he was just a natural. The way his head moved, but his feet stayed still, and he could make a receiver, I mean, make a DB think he
Throw
was
him
going
off.
one way and go another way. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
And then his catch radius, he was 6'3" and could catch a ball anywhere around him. But the thing that made Frank was a smile. How he made you feel. He sat. Our lockers were right next to each other. I was between Frank and Chris Schelling, and had no business being between them. But Frank just smiled all the time and just made you feel just made you feel good. And
Yeah.
and when I talked to him the other day, makes you feel good. But he was a captain for a reason. We looked up to him. We followed him. Where Frank went, we went. And just an incredible football. One of the only prints that I have. I have a couple of things in my office, but one of the only prints that I have is the print of Frank catching the ball at Florida, the pass from Patrick to Frank at Florida
Yeah.
on Florida Field. But obviously, the greatest play ever in my while I was there, and other than maybe the kick six, is Nick's to Sanders, and Frank talks a little bit about that.
Yeah. And the Knicks to Sanders against Alabama.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
I should have qualified because there's
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
There's two.
Right.
The Knicks to Sanders at Alabama is and Frank will talk about is the greatest catch he ever made.
Yeah. And my favorite call from Jim Fife, and it sounds like Frank's favorite call from Jim Fife. But
And mine too. Mine
yeah.
too. It's just an amazing play that improbable, right? Patrick on fourth
Crazy.
down,
Yeah.
just throwing it up, and but Patrick knew what he was throwing. If
He threw it up to a good guy.
The best guy,
Yeah.
and the best guy over Tommy Johnson.
So Frank's not going to be here this weekend at Auburn, but for the celebration. But you talked to him, and he sent us a little message about how much he loved Auburn and some of his favorite memories.
Yeah, and we can play that, and it's he goes back to his recruitment with the Dillard guys, and then into Coach Bowden coming in, but then you can hear in Frank's voice how much he loves Auburn,
Yeah.
still loves Auburn, and how much reverence he has for the institution to this day. And I've talked to a lot of guys. I talked to Jason Miska last night. I talked to Brian Robinson 2 nights ago, and I want to say this. Brian, like me, I lost my father last week. Brian lost his father this past Saturday. And I want to, send him my sincere thoughts and prayers and sorrow for that. And my thoughts will be with him because he's not going to be there this weekend. But I've got to speak with a lot of these guys, and on the show coming up in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a lot of these guys on the show, and we'll talk about some of the things, the '93 team, and then maybe in the Bama week. But these guys love Auburn still. It's been almost 35 years or so. And since we started there, and 30 years since the end of the '93 season, 32 years, and the passion that these guys talk about is still there, and the reverence that they talk about, and just the camaraderie. It's I talked about my father and the '68 team, how they gathered around every year, and the outpouring of love that they sent me when my father passed. There's not a lot of teams that go undefeated or have a national championship, and it's a small club. And our team at '93 was a small club that wasn't supposed to be,
Yeah.
but was.
Yeah. And it's a little different now, I think, with the level of commitment to the schools. But let's listen to Frank Sanders and his message this week about what Auburn meant to him. We'll come back and talk to Brian and Shannon Robeek and Jason Taylor and Todd Bolin and have some fun in a little bit. Here's Frank Sanders.
1993, we had just came off of 5-1 and 5-6 seasons. This is Frank Sanders, if you don't know. and by the voice, but number 81 in your program. But as we always say jokingly, number 1 in your heart. Oh, he caught it at the 2. Nix floats 1 to Sanders. Yeah, that guy. We just lost Coach Dye to some allegations and being on probation. Coach Terry Bowden comes in. A lot of spunk. Seems like he knows exactly what he wants to do with this new Auburn football team coming away from Samford University as their head coach. He talked about attitude and the mindset it takes for a team to believe that they can do something that nobody else believes in. We thought we had a good team. We believed we had a good team until we realized that we had a good team. Every Saturday, everyone came hard to play. The players that are supposed to make plays when I'd make plays, Calvin Jackson, James Bostic, Thomas Bailey, Frank Sanders, Willie Gaucher at a moment's notice, Tyrone Goodson when we needed him, Brian Robinson, Shell Shock, the defensive front line, so many to name, Jason Miska, Mike linebacker. But it was a moment in time, a moment in history that is to be loved and lived by all of Auburn, not just the players on the football field, but all of those that love Auburn. That moment is probably the best moment in my life. The Alabama catch is sincerely the best catch in my life. Going undefeated for the university that you choose after coming off the past 2 years of disappointment, but finding a way with a new coach, finding a way with players that wanted to believe, but not only in football, just about Auburn. Coach Dye would always say, it's something about a man that stands tall in 4 quarters of football. You learn a lot about a man. And you're going to get that moment tonight, man. You're going to learn a lot about yourself, is what he would say. And then we get Terry Bowden with this quote about attitude. And the guys believing in the mindset it takes to go out and fight 4 quarters of football and believe in something that no one else believes in you. I think that was the jolt in the arms that we needed. But the love that was on that team, the desire for that team to want to go out and make Coach Dye proud of them. And in the midst, we found a good coach in Terry Bowden. The entire coaching staff was all committed to Auburn. They all had that one mindset that if you men come together and believe in something stronger and greater than yourself, and that's Auburn, we'll come out victorious. And that's not a new mantra. That's an old mindset of Auburn University through the former great Shook Jordan and then Coach Dye. And those men stood tall when they stood tall in front of those men that was on knees and before a Saturday night football game or a Saturday football game. They believed in Auburn, and they wanted us to believe in Auburn. 1993 was a great season for a lot of reasons, but more importantly, the people that was in love with Auburn, believed in Auburn, and the men that came to Auburn from all around the country that chose that university, for whatever reason, every Saturday they showed up to play. From the guys that were the walk-ons that loved Auburn, to the men that came in that was on scholarship that loved Auburn or found a way to love Auburn because of the Auburn people. You just can't put your finger on it, but it's something about that place. And the people make that place. It's no different than the fight song and that Tiger Walk. Something pretty special. This is my reflection. I'm glad that they was able to acknowledge that we are a 1993 national championship team. So many people made that moment happen. So many players came together. So many prayers in the stands. And more importantly, we did it. 11-0, 11-0, 11-0. God bless the great Jim Fife and his family and all those that supported Auburn, that made Auburn, and that still fall in love with Auburn. I'm an Auburn man in Arizona, and I still love Auburn. War Eagle to you all.